Welcome back to another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We're here to optimize and scale your consumer goods and e-commerce business with wonderful supply chain and operational needs. Today, we are here with another great guest. Peter O'Sullivan is joining us. With over 20 years as an executive and turnaround consultant to technology, manufacturing, and e-commerce distributors, Peter is an expert at simplifying data and putting it to work. As the founder and CEO of Highbeam, Peter helps companies focus on actionable discussions around BI and AI, not just complicated theoretical applications. This allows them to harness their data and put it to work for them through powerful tools like his tool, InsightQ. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. This is going to be a great conversation because we all know that we're talking about AI and it's the top of everybody's mind,
Yeah.
but it's how do you put that AI to work? So Peter's here to join us to talk about the power of where BI meets AI. So let's kick this off. Tell us, Peter, help those guests out there know, what is business intelligence?
So that's first important question. First of all, if you're running a company that's over $500 million, you already know the answer. But the problem is the little guys don't. And so the big guys are eating their lunch because they're using these advanced analytic tools because they just literally are not aware of it. Business intelligence tools, and there's lots of them out there. If you type in Tableau or Power BI, and there's Domo, there's Click, there's a zillion of them out there. Their job is to help companies manage their data. And what that means is they can go to any data source. They're designed to go get data out of different data sources, pull it into central local database or central database, calculate whatever you need to calculate, and then distribute that in a visual format to the people that need to have the information. So somebody that's in sales and marketing doesn't need to know inventory information, and the CEO doesn't necessarily need to know exactly the cost of that ad. So depending on what the data is, it can deliver to those individual people with a visual analytics delivery mechanism that's super easy to use, and it's basically designed for that individual user. So all of a sudden you go from, I can't get the information I need out of my systems, or I'm overloaded, which means somebody didn't organize your data well, didn't use data visualizations, to, oh my goodness, I've got so much insight and I want more. So my dream is always, when we're working with clients, they say, I'd like more of this, which means they're not data overloaded. They're basically hungry for the information that we're delivering to them.
Well, and companies these days should be very data focused, so they should be hungry for more data. But I think one of the things that people and companies don't really understand is how can BI really revolutionize their world? And you gave a few examples, but can you give us a little more context of what BI could really look like in a company, to their founders, to their managers?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples. One is frequency. So when you're on a BI tool, you don't have to wait for somebody to create a report. You don't have to learn lots of different systems. You can literally go to the visualization or the report that you need that's been designed for you, and you can get that refreshed. We refreshed out of the box weekly, but you can have it refreshed daily. You can have it refreshed every minute. The only reason why you may not want it is because it costs money to process all that and do all that refreshing. So one of the things that business intelligence solutions do, and InsightQ, my application, does, is it gives you insight into your company and your data almost real time. Just very frequently, you're not waiting for somebody to create a report. The other dimension is that you actually can have systems. What I say is the systems talk to each other. A good example is you have an ERP or an accounting system. Your accounting system is not talking to your CRM. It's not talking to your sales and marketing people. And those two systems have a lot of really good information that if you can combine the two, you get 1 + 1 = 3. You get a really great insight. One use case that we've done, we do it all the time, is, are you spending, let's say you're on Amazon, you're selling on Amazon, and I'm spending a lot of money on my advertising, and Amazon's so generous, they give you great KPIs to tell you whether you've got ROAS, a return on ad spend. Are you making money on your ad spend? There's a little problem with that math, though, because Amazon doesn't care what your profit is. They care what your revenue is. And you really don't want to spend so much money on your advertising that you're actually selling product at a loss because you've spent it all in advertising. So something like business intelligence can take the gross income from the product out of your accounting system, the advertising you're spending to get that customer to buy, and make sure that you're not spending more advertising dollars than you want.
And that's great. You and I were just talking about Amazon companies, so I love
Yeah.
that you relate that back because there are so many people who sell on Amazon, and there is a lot of data available in Amazon. But I don't know if people know, but the reports that you can get in Amazon is just a teeny tiny little slice of all of that data in the back end. And one of the things you and I were talking about before recording was, having an API connection to Amazon, because there's millions and billions of data pieces back there that you don't have in Amazon reports. And so having it connected to a BI tool can really next level the data that you can get and access and see on a daily or, like you said, weekly basis.
Yeah, there are a lot of really great tools and applications that are designed for Amazon. Amazon's been around. One of the things that Amazon does a good job of is making it very difficult for you to get the data that you want. I know the systems because I've studied the systems. For us to be able to put connections into any database, we have to understand the root of the data, how the data is structured. Amazon does a really great job of really making the structure of the data very complicated and very non-intuitive. And they actually have two different data sets, which you wouldn't know unless you were digging around like me, which is the whole advertising data set is built by a different team than the inventory data set. So they have different schemas, they have different ways to getting to the information. So trying to manage your inventory and your advertising and really looking at those two systems, even within Amazon, they don't talk to each other. And I think Amazon is so advanced that they do that intentionally. I think they do it so that there has to be a market for people to pay to buy tools to pull the data out. Business intelligence is a little different from all the other tools that are out there in that you can customize it for your business. You can tie it back to your accounting system. You can tie it to your marketing system that's doing meta ads or Google ads. You can tie it to all those systems where typically most applications or a lot of applications, and they may be multi-channel, but they really aren't able to access the data across the board. If you're a distributor and you happen to have Amazon, or you're a manufacturer that distributes that happen to have Amazon, you may need a broader access to different information, and a lot of the Amazon-only tools are really good at that part of the program, but they just don't have the broad reach.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, as we're talking about the different types of BI tools that are out there, two of the ones that I've used are Power BI, which is
Yeah.
very widely known. And then I recently used one that's called Sigma.
Uh-huh.
When people are looking at these different BI tools, what is the main difference between all of them? What is something that owners should be looking at as far as how to evaluate them?
Yeah, so one of them is really we're doing some work for a company that has a BI tool that's embedded into their ERP. So when he bought it, he thought that was going to be a good investment. But I actually got my team, we were doing this morning, and we were looking at how they're structured. And the ability to create reports and get data is really cumbersome. And you really wouldn't be able to know that unless you're somebody that lives in business intelligence and lives in data all the time. It's just like you call in a lawyer because a lawyer understands the law. You really have to have people that are experts at business intelligence and data to understand the differences. Really, what's really important is, number one, that they're very easy for you to convert data into visualizations. And there is a right way and a wrong way to do that. That's easy to find out if you just Google YouTube and say, how do I build visualizations? There are a lot of folks that'll give you that information. So it's not proprietary data, but there are right ways and wrong ways to do a visualization. If you're comparing two products, for example, you're not going to use the same view as if you need a time series and you want to see performance over a period of time. That's a simple example. So you want to make sure that it's very user-friendly in terms of taking tabular data and converting that to visualizations. And then you also want to understand whether it's really a standalone tool or it's better used on a database. 90% of all BI tools really want to talk to a database, and that's right. It should talk to a database. The performance is better, the access and the volume of the data that you can get to is better, the ability to integrate data with different systems is better when you're on a database. But Power BI on its own is 100 times better than just Excel, and I love Excel. But Power BI, just the application you can download for free, it is a phenomenal tool, but eventually you're going to outgrow it because you're going to want it to connect to a database.
Gotcha. So when you're saying connecting to a database, you're talking about connecting to an ERP or some other place, or is that connecting to something different?
Yeah, so you could theoretically connect to an ERP. That is not what I would recommend. The way we do it is we pull the different data into a data lake. So that's a general form where you can put any digitized data into a data lake, including video and audio. And computers just know that this is digital information. It doesn't really care what it is. A data lake, and then we transform it into what's called normalized databases. And a normalized database basically has an address, and it's organized in such a way that it's very easy to get the information. I'll give you an example. Kind of the analogy I use is if you went to shop at Costco, the data that you're going to get is the equivalent of the truck backing up into Costco and unloading it into a data lake or into the warehouse. It's still in big boxes. You really can't get access to it. And then what do? They unwrap it, they organize it, and they put it out on the floor so it knows where. So when you go to a Costco, you can find stuff. And the database, really, the normalized database, you want it to go through that processing. So the data that you're looking for is there, it's available. Sometimes it's pre-processed, so you don't have to wait for it to calculate. And it's also less expensive to pre-process data. For example, we do predictive analytics. We do all that prediction before anybody asks for a forecast. It's already been forecasted. You're literally just walking down the shelf and putting it into your cart, and then you're able to take it and use it. And that's kind of, that analogy still works. You still want to have the data in a database that's been normalized so you can get to it, and it's not difficult for the BI system to access it.
You've used that Costco analogy at a previous presentation that I saw you do, and I still, when you said it again, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's such a great analogy. I love it. I might steal it from you one day.
Yeah, you can do that. You can steal it.
Okay. I got Peter's permission.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you're talking about taking data from an ERP and connecting it into a data pool and all of these whatever I'm trying to say, into these intricate steps. Is this something that like small businesses can actually do on their own, or is this something that they really need more help than just doing it by themselves?
So I'll use another analogy. So can a small business talk? If everybody in the business speaks English, can somebody in the business learn Spanish? The answer is, of course they can. So this is not rocket science. It is obviously very complex when you don't know it. So the people that do the work for us, our developers, I am constantly amazed at how skilled they are and how capable they are, because that's what they do for a living and that's all they know. If I ask them a question about, what's cash flow mean, they'll kind of look at me sideways. So, everybody has their strengths and everybody has their expertise. So the answer is, if you're a small business, I would highly recommend that you download. There's a free version of Tableau. There's a free version of Power BI.
Power BI, yeah.
And we're on a Microsoft environment, and we pick that because once you're in Microsoft, if you have Microsoft Word or 365 or any of that, you're in that security area, and so you have the same security level for your data and your applications. You also have a huge pool of talent out there in the world to come in to consult to you. So it's not proprietary. So I'm a fan of Microsoft only for that reason, not that it necessarily is the best technology. In some areas they're better than others, but there's Google and Snowflake, and there's all kinds of really great tools that are out there. But start with downloading a BI tool and have someone on your team start to learn that, or multiple people on your team start to know it, if nothing else, so that you're educated when you do hire a consultant to do the work for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know where to put them. I don't, having working with people that have absolutely no idea is more challenging than having people like we tend to onboard clients very quickly that are already using Power BI. And then they
Sure.
see what we've done, and they're like, oh my goodness, you could move us ahead a year because you've already done all this work. And that, of course, that's what professional services people do is we're doing it all the time. So,
Right.
we already know it. We've already made all the mistakes. Just pay us and we'll make new mistakes for you. But it's really important to know how the data and the schema works, and you gotta kind of get hands on. It is a skill set, just like learning Excel. Anybody who's really good at Excel can migrate to Power BI very easily. That's how I learned it. It's really Microsoft does a good job of making sure that it behaves very much like Excel, and then again, you got to learn the new tool. There's more stuff to learn. So yeah, this is all very capable. And then for stuff that's more sophisticated, when you already have the infrastructure, it's not difficult to bring a consultant and tell them, here's what I'd like you to do. What's that going to cost, or what's the approach you should take?
So going back to our little conversation ahead of time with
Uh-huh.
Amazon, and having that, Amazon API, if somebody were to take Power BI or Sigma and want to connect
Yeah.
it to all the data in Amazon, there is an Amazon API. Could somebody in their office learn how to do that and do that fairly easily, or are we talking more of a complex thing there?
Well, first of all, Amazon's got several. An API is not just you just plug in and it all works. An API is a defined. These are the end. They call them endpoints. This is the endpoint. Excuse me. This is the data that I need to get to. So someone that's building the API really needs to know where the data is, where they want to get to it, and what door they need to open. If I remember correctly, we haven't written Amazon API. And by the way, there are companies out there that rent APIs that you can just buy the API. We use a lot of Fivetran APIs. Part of the reason is because APIs have to know if the data changes, Amazon will send you a notice that says, hey, by the way, because we just changed the data, and if you built your own API, you have to make the adjustments in your API if it affects it. Somebody like Fivetran, you're paying them a monthly fee, and that's
Do it
their job.
automatically.
Let
Yeah,
them do it. And I'm a big fan of that. And I think my clients should be a big fan of that. Let the experts do what the experts do so you can stay
sure.
focused on running your business. But of course, all of this is capable, any company is capable of doing it. It really has to do with what's your priority, what your resources are, and really where do you want to spend your energy and time. And for a lot of companies, they may not be at the place where this is strategically important enough for them. That's why you just start with the free version. And at some point they get to a point, where they go, this is really the better place for me. If I could, I'll give you an example. When I started this business, before I had built Insight Q, I had used Tableau in other businesses where I had a whole data team. These were companies that are over $100 million, and I was a consultant to those companies. I took over. A husband and wife was running a $30 million distributor. They were manufacturing in Asia, and it was a turnaround. And the first thing I said is, I need my BI tool so I can see where the inventory is. I can see where we're spending money on. We were on Amazon seller. We were on Amazon vendor. We had on Shopify. We had small retailers. We had big box retailers. We had a very complex business because that's a lot of the way that a lot of companies grow up organically with a husband and wife or a founder. They're just looking, somebody else wants to buy my stuff. Sure, I'll sell it to you. And it
Yeah.
just got overwhelming. And once you get overwhelmed, then you're not managing your resources. And that's sort of what happened. They got underwater and they had a ton of inventory and they didn't know where everything was. I wanted to use business intelligence to iron that out. And that is the right tool. But I found it was just too complicated for me to do it myself. So even at $30 million, that was a big reach if I didn't know how to do my own programming.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm busy running the company. I don't have time to project manage something like that. So I want to suggest that if you're in that zone, you have to look for solutions that are already pre-made or people already know and understand your industry because they can build it much faster or adapt their application much faster to your needs because they already understand where you're going and how this is going to look.
Thank you, because I think that that's one of the things when it comes to BI. A lot of business owners, CEOs, they're on that point of like, is this something we can do ourselves? Is this something we need to pay, a specialist to do? And a lot of these questions revolve around like, how easy is it for them to do themselves? Because I know that when you're in a small company, sub 30 million, you're like, where can I save money? Where can we do it ourselves? Where's the tipping point for outsourcing? So I think you
Yeah.
gave a lot of really good information about what does that look like and where do you make that decision to potentially outsource.
Yeah, I
So,
think I think you always sorry to
no, no, go for it.
I think you always want to look at what is the investment going to be and what is the return going to be. And nobody has
Yeah.
perfect math on that, but you should at least have that, make sure you have that conversation. And that, so what it means is you may want to start with smaller steps. There's
Yeah.
three dimensions to any software development. There's what's the complexity, so what's the features, what do you want it to do, how much time do you have, and how much money do you have? You have to take at least two of those to figure out the third one. So if you say, I've got $10,000 to put on this, and I have 6 months to implement, or whatever the time frame is, whatever the best time frame is. If you do it too long, it takes more money, and if you do it too short, it takes more money. So there's some optimum of doing the development, and then if you fixed a budget and you've said, I'll let you decide what the best time frame is, then you can start to work with your developer what it is you want to be developed and stay within your budget and your time frame. That's really a very simple way to project manage most things, and especially software development.
In software development. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I want to get to the really good stuff.
Okay.
And I know this is really your forte. AI is on top of everybody's mind, everybody wants to figure out how they can integrate AI into their business. Where does AI end up meeting BI, and how does that magic work?
Yeah, so AI has an unlimited number of applications. So that's the first problem is where the hell should I use it? And by the way, I'm just like everybody else. I'm trying to learn this stuff as fast as, now I may have learned more than the next guy next to me because I live in it all the time, but I still feel overwhelmed. Like I cannot learn this stuff fast enough. It's moving so quickly, which is
Yeah.
exciting and it's scary at the same time. I actually have the domain BI delivers AI. And the reason
Oh,
why I
I
got the
love
domain,
it.
yeah, I know, because actually the reason I did it is because my email address, Peter O at Highbeam Analytics, is way too long and I have to explain it to everybody. I'm like, I need a shorter URL. But there are many ways to use AI. This isn't the only way, but it's a really good way to use it. So we were using AI. Incorporated in 2018, and the first thing I did is named it Highbeam, like the high beams on a car, because we were going to use AI, which is machine learning, to do predictive forecasting. I'm a big fan of forecasting. When you're doing turnaround work, the first thing you're doing is forecasting what's my cash, what's my inventory, what's my sale. You're forecasting everything, and I would use Excel. And I found out that, boy, I could use some of these AI tools to do all that forecasting for me. So we embedded a really awesome forecasting software tool that was in open space, that was developed by Meta. I can give people the technical reasons why we selected that one. We had a choice of many. We chose a certain application to do predictive forecasting, machine learning. And what that does, machine learning is not the same as generative AI, like ChatGPT. And this is what drives me crazy, is everybody says AI, AI, AI. They are completely different tools, and there's a different use case for both. And predictive machine learning basically says, I think you're going to sell 100 units. Oh, you sold 95? I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to make an adjustment. Next week, you sell 105. Oh, you sold 105. So machine learning is very simple, relatively speaking, AI. It's just predicting what you're pointing it to predict to. Generative AI is different. Generative AI is a different use case, and you use that to go inquire and to find out and to have it come up with novel information. I'll give you an example. You can ask generative AI in a large language model, you can ask it, English questions. One of my favorite questions is, what products are we going to be out of inventory on? Which are the most profitable customers that this is going to affect? Now, that's just a great question. And if you had an analyst,
Absolutely.
they would be trying to pull the data all over everywhere. And maybe I create a visualization for that. But that ad hoc, AI's ability to ad hoc go find those answers and say, here are the products, here's the gross income you're going to lose, this is when they're going to run out of inventory, and these are the customers that are going to be affected, is something that AI can do when you already have a really great business intelligence data set. And what gets missed in all the AI, just the last comment is, nobody talks about the data. I shouldn't say nobody. You just
We're
not
talking about it.
we're not hearing a lot about the data. AI is an application. There's three elements to it. It's the large language model or the machine learning model. It's the prompt or the instructions you're asking it to do. We all kind of know that. And then it's the data. So when people are saying, I'm getting a bad answer, they're giving it fancy names for it, it means it went and got data that it had no business grabbing. It doesn't know the difference. I heard somebody tell me it's the best liar in the world. And it is. It's like so confident because it doesn't know any better. So we do generative AI for our clients on their data, and we have to get it right. We don't get to give them bad answers. It's impossible not to avoid it, but you're really saying it's really important to get a really good answer out of this. So we do a lot of work on the data and on the semantic layer, which is how the data all talks to each other. And another element is the linguistic layer. It's probably a new term you've never heard, which is how the language speaks. So when I say AR, AR means accounts receivable. Accounts receivable means amount customer owes you. All three of those need to be tied together. So when someone says in English, I need to know what my current AR is, it knows what it is, as opposed to you just misspelled ARE, right? So the linguistic layer is another piece. So that's kind of my shortcut on the world of AI and how you use it in this environment.
Yeah, and I think you explained it beautifully, especially with how the different models connect and what are the differences, because I think people don't really think, they're used to ChatGPT and they're used to some
Yeah.
of the other pieces, but they don't really understand the difference or they don't understand how they intersect. And I love that you talked specifically about that data being a piece and the language models being a piece, because again, if we're using ChatGPT and like you said, best liar ever, people don't understand why it does that. It's not doing that on its own. It's doing that because it's given data and it's just using that data. So it's nice to hear that a company like yours is really focusing on making sure that that data is accurate so that they're getting accurate answers, and the system's not just lying.
Yeah, I don't think many of my customers care that we do really good clean code. I think they care that when they say who's going to be affected by an out of stock condition, that I give them the right customers and they've got the right information. That's really what because they're using this to make advanced decisions. Our tagline is smarter leaders, better decisions. That's the whole point. Is we have to spend more time and more energy on making sure that the data is clean. Now we're not going out to the internet and getting answers. So that's a different. Then you're going to get whatever's out in the internet, and I
No,
don't know
yours
how
is
many.
self-contained.
Yeah, it's self-contained, and some of your guests may know, or listeners may know, the internet doesn't always tell you the truth. I know that's breaking news here, but
Shocking.
yeah,
Shocking.
yeah.
So give us an example of, give us a fun example of some time that you've used AI in a past project and it's really elevated that BI.
Yeah, well, the question I just asked is one of those examples. The other is where you have an officer of the company that's been using the tool and has been doing a lot of recording of what they need at whatever time. Their AI model, the way that it's designed, it will actually create those reports and ask those questions and create the report that we know that executive wants. For example, someone that really is interested in understanding their marketing and wants to know how the Google Analytics looks compared to maybe some other marketing data, they can actually train their own AI tool and say, I want to see this, and I don't want to see that. I want to see my meta ads, and I want to see those compared to my Google ads, and I want you to report that to me every week, and I want you to send me that report. That's the example of something you can use generative AI to go, well, nobody's ever asked me for this, and I can go both to Google Analytics, because that's in our database, and I can go to Meta, because that's in our database, and I can report those two, and I can compare the two. It starts to know what that executive wants, and it can be trained. You can train it to give you answers to common questions that you're going to have on a regular basis.
So it can almost predict what you're going to ask based off of your history of what you're prompting it to do.
So one thing that most folks know, but some don't, AI does two things. It learns and it predicts. If I say Mary has a little, you just predicted
Dog.
that I was going to say dog, right? Lamb, right? We
Lamb.
do that. That's what AI does. Is it predicts what you. So when you say I want this, when you ask it a question, it's predicting the answer it thinks you want. Literally, that's what it's doing. It's predicting. So yeah, if you understand that, the other dimension that I really have been encouraging people, because I've been looking at different use cases for AI and what's working and what isn't, is looking at AI not as an end answer, which is useful at times, but more as a collaborative partner. You're really ultimately responsible for the answer. This is way beyond just business intelligence, but look at AI as somebody that's going to collaborate with you. So you could, in fact, say, what's the best way for me to understand why we're not more profitable? And ask AI that question and let it go and look at the data and see what answers it gives you. Now, I don't know. I've never done that. That's actually a really good question. I should ask it.
I was going to say, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
great question.
Yeah, I'm gonna, as soon as we're done, I'm gonna go into a client's site and I'm gonna go ask that and see what it comes up with. But it will come back with an answer that may not be quite right, and then you'll iterate on it. If any of us went to one of these awesome schools, UC San Diego has a bachelor's and a master's in data science.
Yeah.
The whole program is iterative. In other words, they build data models, they pull the data, they see what the data looks like, and they go, oh, that's interesting. That's not what I expected. I'm going to modify it. So they modify and iterate, modify and iterate. AI and business intelligence is all about iterating to get the answers that you need. And we're so used to having some software or some solution that just tells us what we want to know. And I want to encourage people that want to use AI to look at it more as a collaborative partner and less as I just going to reach out and I want you to give me the answer, and it better be right.
I know a lot of people are looking at AI like ChatGPT as a way to Google things or to
Yeah, yeah,
search data, but that's really limiting what it can do. And I was talking with some other people recently, and the big new way of looking at AI is to look at it as if it's a partner, to look at it as
yeah,
if it's a team member, and
yeah,
treat it as such.
yeah.
So that's an exciting aspect to
When
think of
you're
it.
doing and when you're doing data, you can do it the same way. You can ask it for data and then say, I want you to calculate the same thing, the profitability for this customer for these products. I want you to recalculate it, what's going to be next month. You can actually ask it to test its own math, and that is the training. And then when you say the second one is the one that's accurate, you've now trained it. So even when you get generative AI on a business intelligence tool, you're still going to be training it for the rest of its life, because it's always going to have there's another new question that you're going to have that you want to work with it, like I say, like it's a colleague that you're collaborating
Right,
with.
right.
And know that you can train it. Your questions and your responses are training it. When you tell it, no, that's not the right answer, you're training your AI tool, which
Yep.
is
So
kind
it'll
of
learn from that.
mind-blowing. That's what we don't think of as software.
Well, that's why they say treat it like a partner or a colleague. So,
Yeah, yeah,
one last question that I know
yeah.
everybody has burning in their mind is, what kinds of pitfalls do people need to avoid? What are the ways that people can mess this up that we want to help them avoid?
Yeah, so one of them, which I sort of alluded to, is really making sure that you spend the time organizing your data. And I know that's kind of obscure, but your AI, like I said, there's three elements to it. There's the large language model, whatever you're using, that's already cooked unless you're building your own AI tool, and that's another story. There's the prompt or the question you're asking it for. That can be modified, and that, you have to get good at that. But if you do not have your data organized the way it needs to be, it has to be AI ready. And if you don't know what AI ready is, guess what? Your next prompt in ChatGPT or Perplexity should be explain what AI ready is, and keep going through it to give you more information. It will tell you what I mean. So I really want you to understand what that means. All of the searches we're doing right now, most of the answers we're getting are from sites and from sources that are AI ready. They already have it organized so that AI can pull it and put it into a nice list for you. So, the data on the internet is going to be AI ready. The stuff that you get, the stuff that's not AI ready is the junk. That's good data, but it hasn't been organized in such a way that AI really can find it the way we all want to find it. So make sure you're paying attention to the data itself, like your question earlier is, should I connect straight to my ERP? No, because that's really not AI ready data. And you can do it in an experiment, but you're not going to really get good results. You need to have it go through that's why we have these systems in place to get it so that it's ready. The other part is really understanding that this is a new journey. So you are not buying something and then it all works. This is really a cultural change in your organization. You're going to have access to more information than you ever had before. And it has to be supported at the executive level. Literally, the CEO has to buy into it, and they have to allocate resources. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of money, but it has to be time. We have to learn how to adapt to this new technology as organizations. And I'm running an organization, and I tell you, I spend 30% of my time just trying to learn how these new things work. And then I learn a lot from every client because they give me a new problem, and I go, okay, we got to figure that out. And we have a team that we've been problem solving for a while, so we're better at it than we were 2 years ago. But it's the business of problem solving, not the business of just getting a solution.
Well, and I think that's a really good point to note at, you're talking about a cultural shift. You're talking about, having to change how an organization interacts with their data. And that really goes back to the AI mindset, making sure that your team has really started to embrace AI and think about what it can do for you, instead of just being throwing this tool at it and then being like, so can I just Google this? Like, no.
Yeah.
This is different. This is not just Googling some data, and how you use it and thinking about the day-to-day operations that can be enhanced using, AI and its access to the data, because we as humans have to learn along with it while it is learning as well. So I love, preparing and having that AI mindset be a part of your culture.
Yeah, I heard someone say, and I think this is a pretty good way to look at it. Think of it as having a 14-year-old Einstein in your company. You have somebody that's just brilliant, but has no experience, no wisdom, and no point of view. Doesn't have really an opinion. It has an opinion that's given to it, so it'll change on a whim. And that's kind of a hard concept to get your brain around. On one level, how completely, unbelievably powerful it is, and on the other level, how completely inept it is. And understanding the differences between the two are really important. If you have a hammer, it's really not very good at, I'm trying to think of, tapping in some glass. It'll break it, right? You got to use the right tool and understand what the limitations are. That's probably not the best analogy, but you get the point. Is you got to use it for what it's really good at and understand that it's always going to have limitations.
As all things do, and as all people do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter. And for those out there that want to hear more from Peter or more about how AI can really enhance BI, you can check out his website. We'll put it in the description. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Erica. It was a delight.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, it's always nice to talk about the things you're passionate about.
Yeah,
so I'm glad we could provide you that.
Okay,
well, remember, we will be here for another episode of Building Up Your Business in another 2 weeks. Remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. I've been your host, Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. And thanks for joining us. Have a great day.